Welcome back to the Deeply Rested podcast. Today's interview is for all of my fellow introverts. The business space, as we know, is full of noisy extroverts telling us how we should be doing business. And I don't know about you, but all of that shoulding is contributing to me struggling with exhaustion, overwhelm, burnout. I think it's time to create a business that works for me as a quiet entrepreneur. And I want you to build a business that works for you as a quiet entrepreneur too. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Cannon, interior designer and founder of Rachel Cannon Limited. Rachel specializes in creating sanctuaries of joy, focus, and unparalleled design for clients who prioritize the rejuvenation of their mind, body, and soul. In this conversation, Rachel and I discuss exactly how she made her business work for her as an unapologetic, introverted, quiet entrepreneur. We talk about how to be visible as an introvert, how to manage social media boundaries, and how to craft offerings that work for your unique energy level. This interview was originally recorded for my fundraising event, the Rest and Success Code, and I am very excited to be sharing it with you again today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this quiet conversation with Rachel Cannon. Welcome to Deeply Rested, the podcast that helps people doing good work in the world take incredibly good care of themselves. I'm your host, retired therapist and disillusioned business coach, Megan Megginson. I'm on a mission to help people like you unlearn the rules that keep you trapped in self-doubt so that you can recover from burnout and finally become deeply rested. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to subscribe to this podcast and join our weekly newsletter at deeplyrested.com/newsletter. Now, it's time for the show. Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Megan Megginson, and I am here today with interior designer, podcast host, and business consultant for creative entrepreneurs, Rachel Cannon, to talk about how you can thrive in your business as an introverted entrepreneur. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing great, and I'm so excited for our conversation today.
I am too.
Well, before we dive in, I want to tell folks listening a little more about you. So Rachel works primarily with introverted creative entrepreneurs and a few special extroverts, guiding her clients to lean in at home and in their businesses by helping them harness their unique capabilities and needs as introverts. A self-proclaimed loudmouth introvert, also the name of her incredible podcast, Rachel's purpose in design and in business is to break down the culture of our society, which is set up for extroverts to succeed. Rachel, I feel like that is a fantastic launch pad for our conversation as two major introverts who have figured out how to do business successfully. I just want to tap your brain today and help people see how you as a creative introvert have created such success for yourself in your small business. What do you think?
I'm happy to share it. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about visibility to start, because this is, so just for everyone listening, I don't remember exactly how I found you, Rachel, but the point is that I did find you, and I found you without looking for you specifically. You showed up somewhere. And then once you showed up once on my radar, you started showing up in multiple places on my radar. And then I reached out to you. I was on your podcast. We started to connect with each other. But what has really stood out to me from the first moment I saw your face on the internet was just how visible you are. You have a podcast, you have a super active Instagram with your face all over it, you do live videos, you have an email list. And what I know is that most introverts are terrified of being visible. So I want to hear from you. How do you show up with so much visibility, and how do you do it without burning out?
Well, it wasn't always that way. I was also, when I first started my business, well, let me just back up and say when I first started my business, no one used social media to promote their business. It was all, right on the cusp of MySpace and Facebook. And I never even had a MySpace. And I think I just sort of got the memo early on. I was kind of like a lot of introverts, hoping someone would hear about me and then tell everyone about me so that I wouldn't have to.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it sure would.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of was like, you know what? I can't really wait for that to happen because I needed to build my business. And it was 2009, the economy had tanked. I had lost the job that I had had for 5 years with another design firm, and there were no other jobs in interior design. And so I think I just sort of was like, okay, I have to get serious about this. And if anybody's going to promote me, it's going to have to be me. Now, it was uncomfortable at first because I did feel like I was bragging about my talent, or I was bragging about, new clients that I had gotten. And I think what really helped me shift that mindset was that we don't have to talk about us. If you know who your ideal client is and who your audience is, you can just talk to them as if you're having a conversation with them. And so it was really a long process for me to get to that point of understanding that type of dynamic between me and the audience. But once I figured that out, I think it just became a lot easier. I don't necessarily have to sell me all the time. What I'm selling is that I get you and I understand what you need from your space or from your business. And so that it makes visibility a lot easier because I'm not constantly having to talk about Rachel all the time. What I'm doing instead is talking about, I get it because I'm also an introvert, and here's what I want from my house, or here's what I want my business to do for me. So that was huge. That was a big, big part of it.
Yeah.
And then and I get it because I know people hate video and people feel awkward on video and whatever. That really came about because I had come out of a divorce and I had gained a lot of weight, and I wanted to just get my life back. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start doing keto. And if I can have a group of people to hold me accountable, that would be so much better. And where better to do that than on my Instagram? So really that started because it had nothing to do with my business at all. It was just, that's where I had the most followers. And I was like, I'm just going to start cooking on Instagram. And I think what it did was it made, it put a real person to the face of all of this stuff that people were seeing on my feed. And I think people started to realize, like, she's not this untouchable, glamorous, living the jet set lifestyle interior designer, which is what a lot of interior designers project. Like, I'm actually a real person with, trying to lose 50 pounds and get my life back together. And I think it just made me more relatable. And it started a much more familiar conversation with the audience who are potential clients. So it just kind of, I think, made me a real person to them.
I feel like you're giving us an order of operations here. If you're just starting out, if being visible still feels really scary for you, focus on getting super clear about your ideal client and show up just talking to them. You don't even have to share anything personal about yourself. And I think we all have the ability to do that, right? We all have the ability to speak to our ideal client. It's why we're in business by ourselves in the first place. So speak to your ideal client first. And as you begin to create an audience, grow a following, build more comfort and confidence in your own ability to show up and be visible, then you can start injecting little pieces of yourself into the mix. And now, at this point, years later, you have really discovered this style where it's a balance of both. You create a lot of content that is very client-facing, like this is for you. But I do feel like half the content I see from you is stuff that's not directly connected to your business. It's just you, Rachel, as a person. I remember when I first signed up for your email list, one of the first newsletters that I got from you was you trying on different dresses. And I loved it. I was like, this has nothing to do with business at all. But I felt like I got to see you and who you were. And then it made me hungry to click open on the emails that I got from you in the future, because I just, I was engaged with you as a person, and then the value that you delivered was so stellar as well. So this is just such good advice. Like,
thank you.
Do both pieces, and start with what you're comfortable with.
Right. And let me just say this. I know this is a word that gets overused on a daily basis, but authenticity to me really is super important, which is why I do stupid things like try on dresses in my kitchen, because I get excited about new clothes. And I feel like my audience on some level is going to relate to that. And so it's just, I think there's a lot of people, I don't call myself an influencer because I feel like that is a whole other type of thing. And I'm not really interested in picture perfect life because I don't think it's real. So I would much rather I would much rather try on a dress that doesn't fit and be like, oh, I ordered this and look how hilariously small it is. Like, that to me is so much more relatable than somebody who's like, my life is perfect. My kids are perfect. My husband is perfect. My hair is perfect. My skin is perfect. My house is perfect. Like, none of that is real to me. So
yeah, it's totally not real. And when you show up as perfect, if you think that you have to have this facade of perfection, you're going to have a really hard time showing up in your business when you're not doing well.
Yeah.
Right. So if we come back to this idea of how do we burnout proof our business? Well, we do that by creating a business that allows us to show up as 100% who we are, so that if things aren't going well, we can tell our audience, I'm struggling right now. Like, here's me. I'm a human. I'm having a hard time. And those are the moments that I really feel resiliency in my business. I don't think I would feel that if on top of feeling burnout, there was also pressure to look perfect to my clients. That just sounds miserable.
Well, I feel like it's miserable, but I also feel like that's a market that's already been cornered and it's oversaturated anyway. And I think
the perfection market.
Yeah. I just think there are 1.5 million people that you can follow who will give you that on a daily basis.
Right.
I mean, I would much rather you meet my actual friends in my real life as we cook something in my kitchen and crack each other up than some perfectly staged photo shoot where, I don't know. I do follow some of those people. Yeah. But I don't, that's not what I'm consuming on a daily basis. I think the thing I always kind of come back to is like the characters I relate to in all of the shows that I watch are like Liz Lemon from 30 Rock, who she's this overachiever, but she's the most self-deprecating person on the planet. It's like, that's just, I get that kind of humor. And I feel like it's, I don't know, it just makes you, it takes the pressure off of you, honestly.
It really does. Well, and I think there's another win here as well, which is like you are going to attract your most ideal clients when you are showing up authentically, right? When you're showing up as yourself, because people who see you being you and don't like you, like you don't actually want that person to be your client. So I feel for me, it's a great litmus test. Like, hey, check out my stuff. If you think I'm funny and if you like my bad jokes and you like my choice of memes, then we're probably going to be a great fit to work together. And if I get on your last nerve, like, please go find another business coach. Like, we're not going to be a good fit. So
exactly.
I think it's great from all angles. Okay, introverts, you heard it here. Show up as yourself and speak to your clients, and being visible with time and practice won't feel so scary. Let's talk about social media for a minute, specifically Instagram. I mean, I definitely get overwhelmed by Instagram. I think a lot of people do, but you're really making it work for you. So do you have any tips about how to manage your relationship with social media as an introverted person?
Well, I made a decision, and there are a lot of people who would tell you not to do this, but for my own sanity, I made a decision to have a private personal Instagram and a business public Instagram, because even though I am engaged with followers and I do get to know a lot of them, like, because they comment so often, they're not actually in my real life and in my real sphere. And so personal things will go on personal Instagram, and business things, and maybe a couple of personal things will go on business Instagram. But for the most part, like, you'll see pictures of my cats on my personal Instagram, or you'll see my family on my personal Instagram. And that was just a choice that I made because I just felt like it was very blurred, and like how much you don't really know who's watching, and you just don't know. Yeah. And so for me, it was more just kind of I wanted to keep some things compartmentalized, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was number one. And the number two is going back to knowing who the ideal client is that you want to work with, the person that you were trying to bring into your business. The messaging pretty much stays the same no matter what we're posting. I mean, I can tell the backstory about projects, but it's going to always come back to, and they hired me because they were professionals with demanding schedules who needed a space that would help them recharge at the end of the day. And I ended up last year, I actually had done all of our social media for 10 or 11 years myself. And that was something that was like, okay, it's time to pass the torch. So since I knew what the messaging was, and I was really clear on core, principles that need to be, at least once or twice a week, we need to touch on these things. I hired a copywriter who now manages all of our Instagram for us. And she and I will have like a monthly meeting where I'm like, okay, here are the goals for this month. We want to talk about kitchens for the month, or we want to talk about color for the month, or, whatever. And then she has access to my Planoly account. She creates all of the posts. She'll send me an email and say, okay, next week's posts are up if you want to go in and make any edits or add anything. And that's been great because, it's kind of, I do sort of still struggle with, I guess because I am an overachiever and I feel like everything is my responsibility, and I was kind of raised that way. I do sort of struggle with delegating and feeling like, who do you think you are? Like, is this so beneath your pay grade? But the truth is that, yeah, it is.
It is. Yeah.
And that's okay. And so getting some things off of my plate frees me up to focus on other ways we can make money. And that's really what my job is at this point. And in addition to being sort of the creative at the top of the design business, I need to also be able to think of ways we can, have other offerings that bring in money for the business other than just design or just coaching. So that was big. And then the other thing is going back to the influencer thing, I do regularly unfollow. Like, I may dip in and see what something's about, or like people will tell you, oh my God, you have to follow this. It's so great, or it's so beautiful, or it's so whatever. If there's just nothing there for me that I feel like I don't see myself in anything there, or it starts to make me feel bad about my life.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Unfollow. Like, and I'll be honest with you, I have unfollowed colleagues and I've unfollowed friends who I actually like in person, but I don't like what's being projected because I don't know. I just don't feel like it's attainable. And so, I'm just big on setting boundaries, I guess.
I was just about to say, it feels like every tip you have just shared is in itself a boundary, right? A social media boundary. Keeping your personal and your professional accounts separate has created really clear boundaries for you. Someone said to me once, our audience gets access to us. They don't get access to all of us.
That's good.
Right? Like, and that's what you've created. You've created this professional account that is this mixture of client-facing content and more like personality-based content. And you are showing them the real you. You're just not showing them all of the real you.
Right.
And that feels like a really healthy balance for you. The next thing you said, I think, is super crucial. You did your social media yourself until you got crystal clear on your messaging. And then you were able to pass it off. And I have to say that when I first went on Instagram, I did it the other way around because I was like, I hate Instagram. I just want to do it for me. And she did it for a couple of months and I was just so not happy. And I realized I was never going to be happy. Like, I wasn't clear yet on what my messaging was. I wasn't clear yet on how I wanted to show up on Instagram because I had never been on Instagram before. So I wanted to reflect that back for people listening. Like, the way Rachel did it is the right way to do it. If you want to be on social, you've got to show up yourself first. You've got to like get a feel for it, get a feel for what you like, what's a representation of you, what your messages are, what your content pillars are. Once you figure that stuff out, you can absolutely successfully pass it off to a really talented social media manager. I never would have guessed, Rachel, that you were using a social media manager because your stuff sounds so much like you. So what a great like real life example. Go check out Rachel's Instagram and see like, this is what it can look like having someone support this piece of my business.
Yeah. Well, and what you said, I hear that a lot from our coaching clients too, that they have interviewed or they have hired someone for a brief amount of time and they weren't happy with it. Like, because you don't even know what you're trying to say. You don't even know the points you're trying to get across yet. And so that, to be honest with you, that is the hardest part, I think, of all of this is, and I will speak as a creative. Creatives have a really bad habit of thinking, if I start to define who this person is that I want to work with, or if I want to like plant a flag in the ground and say, this is what I'm about, I'm going to turn a bunch of people off and I'm going to lose opportunities and I'm going to have no work, when really the opposite is what's true. I mean, you're going to attract all of the correct people instead of like getting into and especially in design, getting into the middle of a project and realizing, oh my God, I hate this client and they hate me. And like, now what? Yeah. And it's happened before. It happens all the time to designers, not to me anymore, thank God. But it's
because you figured it out.
I figured it out. Yeah. And so that's so true. Like, it's it's tough because it's going to require you having to get very clear. And it's hard for us to do that as introverts and as creatives because it does require visibility. So if you've considered working with anybody doing social media or copywriting or anything for you, it's going to be a struggle until you know what you stand for.
That's right. Yeah. It all starts with messaging, right? What's your message? Once you know that, everything becomes exponentially easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's move into, I'm really excited to talk with you about this part, your one-on-one client work, right? I know that you work with interior design clients and you work with business coaching clients. All of your work, Rachel, is really people-oriented. I would love to hear how you manage your energy around a workload that is so people-facing.
Well, at some point you have to tell the people to leave you alone.
Yeah.
So, a decision I made a few years ago was, and this was before I started coaching, this was just in design, that I was not going to give clients my cell number that we literally have landlines, and it rang just a minute ago, and I hope it didn't sound on this.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, good. We got
that
landlines.
Feels very old school. Yeah.
Yeah. For the
Vintage.
office. Because I was like the constant questions and where is this and when is this happening and can we meet, and like I couldn't get any structure in my schedule because I was being led around by the nose by all of the clients, and it was not, I couldn't be creative, I couldn't get any kind of a routine, and I'm a person that really thrives with knowing how my day is going to be organized every single day. So that was huge. And I think the other thing is not just saying I'm not going to give clients my cell number, but like explaining to them why I need a break. I'm not going to be able to show up and be creative the next day if I continue to work after I go home for the day and text messages continue to roll in until 10, 11 o'clock at night and then start again at 6 o'clock the following morning. Like there was a time in my life where I was working with one particular client, and it was every morning, 7 a.m., she would have just dropped her kids off at school. And then the texts would just start and I would be exhausted before I ever even got dressed for work. So again, I guess this goes back to boundaries and kind of setting boundaries. But what it really to me is just getting really clear on like, what do I need from my business, and being very self-aware and starting to understand that like going home and immediately going to bed at 6 o'clock 2 or 3 nights a week is not normal. Like you have hit a wall and you need to like change some things up. So it was a big thing for me to say, like, we're not going to text. And like, I even had to go back to contractors that I had worked with before that I'd be like, look, it's fine if you have my cell number, but don't group text me with the client. Don't give potential clients my cell number, give them the office number. That it is a boundary, but it was also how I preserved energy. Yeah. And it was, now I leave and I don't really have to deal with work when I leave for the day, which is awesome. And I don't work on weekends. And I even have gone so far as to structure our schedule to not take appointments before 10 a.m. and to not take appointments after 3 p.m. And we only take appointments Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have Mondays for in-office type stuff that we need to like, get ourselves prepared for the week. And then I actually take Fridays off. And so it's just been, these are not things I did all at one time. These were one thing at a time, that I put into place that all helped in the long run. And I don't know, I think if you are wanting to grow a business at all as an introvert, it does feel exhausting because in the beginning, you may not have the money to hire people to manage things for you. And you may not, there's a lot of reasons why you may think you can't do a lot of things. But what I've learned is, and I hate to get woo-woo because this kind of stuff drives me crazy. I think I'm just too much of a realist, but like truly the story you tell yourself over and over and over again does kind of become your reality. And so if you're constantly saying in the back of your mind, I can't afford to do that, I can't afford to not hire, or I can't afford to not take this client, or I can't afford to hire this employee, or I can't afford to take Fridays off. It's going to stay that way the longer you tell yourself that kind of stuff. I think I had a business coach one time that told me something like, if you plant something in a small pot, it's going to stay small. But if you plant it in a big pot, it'll grow to the size of that container. So it's more just planting the seeds of what do you really want your business to be? I actually don't want a humongous business with 35 employees. And can I just say, during quarantine, I was shocked to find out that what the IRS considers a small business is any business with fewer than 500 employees.
I know. I had that same moment. Like my head exploded. What? Like that.
I was like, that is a corporation. I do not no, I am a small business. Like we've got 3 people here. This is it. So yeah, it's just managing your energy that's the biggest part of running a business as an introvert, because we're not built the way that extroverts are. No. And we're going to need to recharge every single day.
Well, I really appreciate how clearly you're saying, get clear on what your energetic limitations are first. What do you want your schedule to look like? And there's no room here for us to say, oh, but I can't because of this or that. Right? Oh, I can't. My clients need me to be available after work or on the weekends or what. Like, no. Set all of that aside and get really clear how and what structure and what container am I going to do my best work, which is what you did. And then over time, you set more and more boundaries to make that vision a reality for yourself. And some of these boundaries, I think, are so brilliant. The landline, right? You discovered that you couldn't hold your own boundaries on your cell phone. Some people can, right? Some people can see the notifications coming in and just ignore them.
I cannot.
You can't. And you knew that about yourself. So you said, instead of being a victim to the stress of my cell phone and just being in these constant burnout cycles because people are texting me all the time, I just made a decision. You know what? I'm going to remove this access from my clients and I'm going to pay for a landline. Yeah. I think that's such a great example of what it looks like to identify a limitation, identify a need, and move into action instead of staying stuck in helplessness.
I will say this about the landline too, and this just dawned on me. The whole reason I got this phone is because you could set it up with an answering service first. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like a way to have a buffer between me and anyone who needed me. Mm-hmm. And so, and this is so funny. You could get a voice actor to record your message. Oh. So I hired this British lady because I loved her accent. And then one of my clients later on, I know exactly. One of my clients later on was like, I actually didn't leave a message the first time because I thought I couldn't afford you. And I was like, good. You know what? Good.
That's awesome. That is so great. Yes. The way you're talking about this just really shines a light on boundaries don't have to be punishment.
No.
I think sometimes introverts, when they're setting these, I'm using air quotes here, when they're setting these boundaries, it's like there's this narrative in their mind of oh, this is because I'm not good enough or not capable enough. And you have just spun that on its head and been like, no, you're awesome. And the boundaries that you're setting can serve the benefit of protecting you, but also protecting your business and creating this image of your business in the eye of your customer. It's like, whoa, she's really got her shit together.
Yeah. Long before I actually did.
Right. No one needs to know really what's going on behind the scenes. It's what image are you projecting? And I would much rather pick up the phone and get a voicemail of a posh British lady than I would pick up the phone and get you answering the phone while you're walking down the street, huffing and puffing and super stressed and you can't remember why I'm calling you. Mm-hmm. It's so clear when we give ourselves permission to set the boundaries. Everything is better.
But I also want to say, I do work with a lot because interior design is mostly female-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. I do work with a lot of my coaching clients who are women who have absolutely no problem setting a boundary when it comes to things like picking up kids in carpool, running kids to activities. There are boundaries galore when it relates to that. But they have problems setting boundaries when it relates to themselves because it feels selfish or it feels indulgent to say, I'm not going to take any appointments on Mondays because they have told themselves the story. Their clients are going to think, well, my God, when do you work? All I ever hear you say is that you've got to pick up your kids from carpool or that you've got to take kids to activities. And now you're not going to take appointments on Mondays. Well, forget it. Well, forget that story altogether because like I said, when I just started doing it and my clients, what are they going to do? The worst that can happen is that they don't work with you.
Yeah.
And that's fine because there's going to be somebody else who would love to.
Exactly. If they choose not to work with you because your boundaries don't work for them, it means that they're not an ideal client.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean that, you're defective. It just means that it wasn't the right relationship. So release it. No, say, okay, I hear that we're not the best fit to continue working together. I totally support that. Let me give you some referrals. I wish you all the best.
Absolutely.
And just like you said, you have just cleared space in your schedule to work with someone who brings you so much joy. I think that just makes me happy in my body. Just like, yes. Set those boundaries, call in those ideal clients, and being in business, being in small business as an introvert can be really life-changing.
It really can.
Okay. Well, let's talk about something a little more controversial.
Yes, please.
If you're up for it.
Okay.
So we're sitting here talking about one-on-one client work, how to navigate energetic boundaries when you are doing a lot of, client-facing work, which can be draining. And I think that many introverts who are doing one-on-one client work without all of these boundaries are so burnt out and so exhausted that they're looking for something on the polar opposite side of the spectrum, right? They're like, obviously, one-on-one client work is never going to be sustainable for me. I think you and I are challenging that, but that's the narrative in their minds right now, right? One-on-one client work, I can't do it. Online courses sure do sound appealing, right? Passive income, I can make money while I sleep. There's this, I think as introverts, we are very susceptible to the lure of passive income and being able to make money without having to engage with people on a daily basis. But I know, Rachel, that you have a really firm line in the sand that you're not going to offer online courses. And I want you to tell us why.
Well, I had worked with a business coach for years who I have all the respect for in the world, but she is a complete extrovert. And she really transitioned her business from sort of group coaching to one-on-one coaching to now online group coaching and online courses. And she was really, really pushing for all of us to do this because she had made us think that the interior design industry was going to go belly up and none of us were going to have any jobs and clients would be able to buy everything online, which they can already anyway. And I really fed into the fear of, oh my God, I've worked all these years I can't end up with like nothing. So I circled this whole thing for the longest time. And let me just preface this by saying that the online course industry is a beast in and of itself. Everyone is selling an online course. Everyone is giving you a freebie to get you on their email list, to get you into some type of buy this course and now buy that course and now attend this and da-da-da. And these people have all the time in the world to do that because it is their one and only job. I am running my full-time interior design business. And what I found was, first of all, it's very confusing. All of the new language that I had to, what is a lead magnet? What is a course? How is a course different from a digital offering? It's so much to sort through.
Right.
I circled this for, 2018 was when I thought I was going to do this. So now it's 2021. What is that, 3 years? I finally was like, I'm not going to do it because I could never get anything up and off the ground. Yeah. It was like I would circle it and circle it and circle. I'm like, oh my God. And then you've got to do an order stack. And then you've got to have an additional offer for a bonus and a buy this now. And it's all this back end on your website. And that doesn't even include you creating the content, which could be a video, which could be a PowerPoint presentation that you record with you speaking over it. Like I never could get anywhere close to any of that. And what I finally realized was, and it was I found a new business coach that I'm working with now. And I finally was like, what I really want to do is help other interior designers not make the same mistakes that I made. And I really want to do this with introverted interior designers because I feel like the cards are already stacked against us because we're not extroverts and we don't have all this energy and we don't, So I finally was like, I'm not going to do a digital course because it took me less than a week to round up 10 for a small coaching group that I'm now doing. And it's over the course of a year. And we meet once quarterly for intensives. And we have a Facebook group that is a private group where they can post their questions and I weigh in. Like that's manageable for me. And it's also manageable for them because I've been in their shoes where you attend this course and it's almost like information overload and you leave and you're like, I'm just going to put that on the shelf for the next 6 months because I got to digest it. And so I tried to make it so that they could do it sort of, it's the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So we're going to take this one bite at a time, and we're going to take a quarter of the year to focus on one thing. And that was all the proof that I needed, that I did not need to go down the rabbit hole of digital courses. Because here's the other thing. Once you make the course, your job is to then sell it every single day. Every single day of your life. Your social media then has to be dedicated to getting people on your email list, getting people to buy the course, introducing new courses. You can't just make one. You've got to make 20, because then you got to add on, and then you got to have version 2.0 and version 3.0. I hear you sighing, and I'm only talking about it.
I was just I could literally be saying all of this myself. You are, yes, preach. I mean, this is true. People get this idea that online courses, online offerings are just this easy little thing that I can just I'll just do that. I'm just going to keep doing everything I'm already doing. And sure, I'm going to add an online course into the mix. And I feel like half of my job as a business coach, I feel like, is popping people's bubbles, which sucks on one hand. I hate seeing the look on people's faces when I, say what they need to hear and then they deflate. But I also I want people to know before they get 10 grand into the create an online business hole, right? I want people to hear, hey, if you feel really passionate about online courses, that's awesome, but you need to realize that that's a full-time business.
100%.
It's not an extra thing that you can just do as a person with low energy. I mean, when people talk about passive income at this point in my career, I actually feel like, have you seen Inside Out, the Pixar movie?
Yes.
With the little emotions.
Yes.
I feel like when people are oh, passive income, I feel like the anger emotion, just rah, just I just feel so much anger, because I know that some people are making it work for them, but I feel like even more people are getting pulled in to something that ends up draining their bank accounts and leaving them feeling super disappointed.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel like that's another point. Who are you learning from? Because if this is someone who was an early adopter of the online world and the online course thing, they've already made their millions. So they can sink as much as they want to. Or do they have a trust fund? Or are they married to someone who's really wealthy who can fund this? Because I feel like it's very expensive. And that's the other thing is when you realize, I did, I don't have the skill set to create digital anything. So everything was going to have to be sourced to someone else. Yeah. I mean, I got a quote from someone to do all of it. Create the thing, you do the brain dump, we'll create it, we'll do the graphics, we'll set up the tripwire that gets somebody on your list, that sells them the product, that delivers it to them the minute. $8,000. I was like, you know what? No, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a portion of that, and we're going to do something that we can use to market the design business, because that's where I actually make my money right now. You can't walk away from the thing that makes your money for you now. You are basically starting a whole new business if you go into that digital world. So that was the deciding factor for me. The thing I was passionate about was helping people one-on-one, making a connection with them, watching their businesses evolve, watching them evolve. And what is not a passion for me is creating something that lives out in the ether that I never get to hear from anyone.
Well, that's the bind for introverts, right? Because on the one hand, we get really depleted. We have lower energy levels, and lots of interaction drains our batteries. On the other hand, what we crave more than anything else are deep, meaningful, one-on-one connections.
Absolutely.
And so I get it. When introverts are in their burnout, I absolutely get why the lure of online income feels so appealing. I get it. But I just want introverts to zoom out a little bit and just really reflect, okay, when I'm not burnt out, when I'm my best self, what type of work brings me joy? And it's often deep, meaningful, one-on-one,
absolutely,
face-to-face interactions with other human beings. And we need to own that. And what you're saying, it's how I work too. High ticket offers, high ticket offers. If what you love are one-on-one interactions, a business model that centers around high ticket offers and working with people over a prolonged period of time in a way that works for you for a lot of money, that's the way to go. That is the working environment that brings me joy. Now, I know you and I are super aligned here. But I just want to say this isn't like what you and I are saying, of course, isn't going to be true for all introverts, but the gut check that I want to invite people to do really is, what path sounds more exciting to me? If you feel excited about the online course path, if the thought of getting into the tech and creating lead magnets and building out funnels and, designing in Canva, like doesn't bring us joy. But if you're listening and that does bring you joy, explore that path, but be honest with yourself about how much money it's going to take to do that and how much time it's going to take to do it well. Just be realistic about it. And then I know we have on this season of the Rest and Success Code, Gemma Bonham-Carter, who is a course creator who's going to be talking about how to create courses without overwhelm. So if you're listening to me, Rachel, and we're popping your bubble and you're like, no, I really want this to work for me, go listen to the conversation with Gemma and get a different perspective and see if like, okay, maybe it is the path I want to pursue. But I seriously doubt, if you really are an introverted entrepreneur and you have low energy levels, I seriously doubt that you're going to have the bandwidth to do both.
I could not agree with you more. Like, and honestly, can I just tell you this too? The day I gave myself permission to say, I don't want to do this, like, I walked away.
Yes. Rainbows in the background.
I walked away from all this guilt and all this comparison anxiety of like, why can I not just get this together? It's because I didn't want to do it. And that is my gut, which is another thing you have to learn to do, is listen to your gut. And that's what boundaries are about. It's just not for me. And if it is for another type of introvert, then I will sing your praises. I'll probably buy your course.
Yeah, I'll buy your course and never finish it. Is what. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I'll buy your course, get a third of the way through, and then move on to something else, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Well, that was another part for me too, was when I was really reflecting on my own experience in online courses. And I was like, wait a minute, you don't like doing online courses. Why would you make one?
Yeah.
Like, why would you invest in making a thing that you yourself wouldn't even want to digest?
And I feel like every course I've done that's online is only a setup to get you to buy the next one. It's going to give you a little bit of the answers, but the real answers are in the next one. So buy the next one. So it's a constant, think about that. That's why I was like, you can't just make one. If you give all the answers away in one, then you're done. And then it's not passive income. It's not passive income anyway, but it's not residual income for sure. So you have to give them just enough to get some answers. And then you got to pose another problem. So now what are we going to do? Buy my next course coming out in April. Yeah. Shoot me. No. It never stops.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's obviously not for us. Mm-mm. And if you think it's for you, go listen to the conversation with Gemma.
Yeah.
There are people who are doing it and doing it well.
Sure.
But yeah,
I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. It just was not.
No,
it's never going to work for me.
Well, and I hope that's what we can do for some people who are listening to this conversation right now, is give you the permission slip that it took Rachel and I years and years and years to give ourselves, which is to say, hey, you can absolutely succeed in business. You can succeed having an online-based business without a course. You don't have to have a course or a digital offering to succeed and to make the money that you want to make. Like, high ticket offers, one-on-one services aren't going anywhere. And in fact, maybe I'll just weave this in right here at the end. Kind of think people like you and me, Rachel, are in a really sweet position right now, as more and more providers are moving away from offering one-on-one support. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of people are taking one-on-one support off of their service menu and are replacing it with more scalable online digital offerings. So if you are someone who loves working with people one-on-one, there's more of a need for us now than ever before, which is sweet.
Let me just say this too. Because I am an interior designer, I do want to know what's happening out in the realm of this industry, which is a gigantic industry. And so out of morbid curiosity, I took one of those, it's a company that like will match you with a stylist to help you with your room kind of thing, just to see So I took the quiz and it comes back that my personal style is something called glam noir, which is something I've never heard of. And then it started to show me pictures of things that I would want in my home. And it was like Victorian tufted deep purple with rhinestones in the tufting. And I was like, this is not me. And only because I know myself do I know that this is wrong. So I feel like that's one of those things in my industry that's taken the place of a one-on-one interaction with someone who's actually going to listen to. A robot cannot do what I can do, period.
Yep. Yeah.
And robots, although who knows what's going to happen in the future.
We'll revisit this conversation in 5 years.
That's right. Right now, there is no robot who can take very delicate nuances in, I like pink, but I don't like peach. Mm-hmm. Where is the line between the two? I know.
Right.
I can have that conversation with you and find out. But yeah, you're exactly right. I think especially coming out of quarantine too, people are going to be ready to meet with people and have interaction. And it's lucky for me, everybody has been holed up in their houses this year and they hate them. And so
I was wondering that too. Like, yeah, I bet business is booming. I know here in Portland, like everyone and their mother is getting their house remodeled right now. Or moving, everyone's like, this place is awful. Mm-hmm. There's always a silver lining in the business space if you look for it. Mm-hmm. But I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is if you just really listen to your gut, set the boundaries that you need to set to take really good care of yourself, everything else will flow.
Yeah.
And there's no reason you can't be successful as an introverted entrepreneur if you focus in on what you're good at, who your ideal client is, how you love working with them, and just commit to showing up in ways that feel good to you.
Yeah, I agree.
Rachel, this conversation has been amazing.
It's over.
My humble opinion.
I'm sad.
I know. Rach and I love talking with each other. Maybe we need our own podcast, Rachel.
We do. I think we absolutely do.
We just bitch about things that get on our nerves. I would listen to that podcast.
Listen, my best friend says she has the best name for a podcast that's called If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother.
That's perfect.
Yes.
You can invite guests who just need a good vent.
I think that's fantastic. The airing of grievances.
We'll circle back to that once we complete our current business ideas, where we won't succumb to putting too many things on our plate at once in the spirit of being true introverts. Amen. I do have one question for you as we wrap things up. I would love to know how you know personally when it's time for you to take a break from your business. And when you do step away and take a break, what are your favorite ways to rest?
I take a break from my business every day when I go home. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to me having the conversation about not texting with clients. I need an office that is not in my home, and I need my home that is not in my office. So for me, this was tough because for a long time I did work from home and it was with me all the time. And so taking a break meant literally going out of town. Mm-hmm. And I understand for entrepreneurs who are in the early stages of your business, it is very hard to go out of town and feel like things don't fall apart because you're not there. So if you could do anything right now and like take my advice, I would say do what you can to, at a certain time of day, turn it off, walk away from work. I literally go home every single day and I sit in complete silence for like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I know it's not realistic for everyone because people have kids and families and I happen to be single and I live alone, but that has been major in me being able to not get burnt out, not get tired of it, not feel like, I don't want to go to work today. Like I'm excited to come to work every day. So
I'm just curious, what do you do when you're sitting in silence?
I hold my cats, but it is truly like a little therapeutic. It's my happy place.
Yeah.
I have one cat that loves to sit in my lap and you can see her. She gets really excited because she knows it's snuggle time. And so I get on the couch, I put the blanket on, she hops up in my lap, she curls up into a little ball and we just sit there.
This is the happiest thing I've heard all week. Thank you so much for sharing. So for you, you're very proactive in taking breaks.
I am.
And I think that is definitely something you are providing so much value to the people listening to this conversation by sharing in real life how you made that a reality for yourself. And favorite ways to rest, just being in silence, warm, under a blanket, snuggling with your cat, letting your nervous system really regulate.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this feels like a perfect segue to talk about the free gift you have for folks who are listening. Can you tell us about your Quiet Room download?
Yes. So when I started my podcast, I did 2 episodes called The Case for a Quiet Room because of exactly what I just explained to you. Realizing that as an introvert, the needs that I had from my home were completely different from my friends who are extroverts. They can go home, it can be noisy, the TV can be on, their kids can be screaming, and they're fine with it. Whereas if I hear the TV come on when I get home, it literally grates on my nerves.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to niching my design business down even more into design for introverts with demanding schedules. So I put together a little guide that basically just helps alert you to the signs that you may need to create a quiet room in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a concept that I had where I thought, I get it. Not everybody lives alone. Not everybody can sit in total silence in the living room. So what we need to do as introverts is create a space that is ours, that is not the shared home office, that is not your master bedroom, that is not, some other space in your house that people walk through. And it's whatever you need it to be. People were very curious about this when I first, what do you do in a quiet room? Well, you don't do anything. You just, whatever you want to do, you can paint, you can draw, you can read, you can nap, whatever.
Snuggle with your cat.
Sit with your cat. Exactly. So the quiet room really is, I guess, more just a metaphor for, like you said, a space where your nervous system can just decompress.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do have that on our website. If you go to rachelcannonlimited.com and you have to spell out the whole word, scroll to the bottom of the homepage. At the bottom of the homepage, it says, sign up and get our guide for the 4 signs that you might need a quiet room.
Rachel, I have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Deeply Rested. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love to invite you to join the Deeply Rested weekly newsletter. You can sign up at deeplyrested.com/newsletter. I hope to meet you in my inbox very soon.